Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to part 6 of our 6-part Dominaria full set review, where today we're going to wrap things up by looking at all of the colorless cards in the set. Now, if you've been watching the series, you know what to expect here. We're going to look at each card individually, just briefly tell you what their power levels are going to be like in Draft and Sealed, and also how they will work with some of the other cards that you might find in your pools. Quickly before we get started though, just a really fast reminder, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to help support us and what we do here at the channel, one of which is our Patreon page. You're also going to find some product links on Amazon. If you make any purchases on Amazon, once you go through that first link, no matter what it is, we'll get a small percentage. And finally, Flipside Gaming still offering a promo code for our viewers. Hopefully you can save some cash while you support us. And with that, again, thanks not only to the folks that look at those links, but to all of the viewers. You make the channel what it is. I can't thank you all enough. And let's get into it. Karn, Scion of Urza. Why not start off big? Maybe one of the biggest cards in the set. One of the things that if you happen to pull it, it's mythic. Of course, it won't happen often. You're going to most certainly be playing it in Draft and Sealed. I mean, you're going to be playing this in Constructed Magic as well. This thing is incredible. First off, 5 loyalty for 4. That's amazing on its own. And the +1 is fantastic. Yes, I realize you reveal the top 2 cards of your library. Your opponent gets to choose which one you get and which one you don't get. And, you know, letting your opponent choose is never a great thing. But that can be mitigated later by the -1 as long as Karn can stay in play. So I don't feel bad about that. And at the end of the day, it's still card draw. Even if the selection is the worst of the 2 cards, it's still card draw. You're still working through your deck. And you do have the ability to go back and get one of the cards that is meaningful to you later. Now, the -2 can be relevant at times. Other times it won't be as relevant. I'm really interested in the +1, -1. Obviously, if you're more into an artifact-centric plan, then that will be great for you as well, or if you just need a quick blocker on the fly or something. Aesthir Glider. This is a reprint. This is a good aggressive card if you just need an aggressive card in the air for 3. Like, it's not amazing. It's not always going to make your build. This, like all the artifacts we're going to talk today, get better with some of the historic or artifact synergies that you'll find, especially in white and blue, so always keep that in mind when you're building your deck. But just generally, sometimes playable, probably most of the time you'll have better things, though. It does give you some evasion. I do like that. Amaranthine Wall. Alright, this is fine if you're trying to come up the ground, if you're trying to be a little more slow and methodical with your deck build, maybe you're in a control deck or something like that. Otherwise, I probably would skip this. It's interesting. I mean, it certainly defends against a lot of stuff, but I want to be more aggressive typically than this in most builds. It does have its place, and maybe even side it in against certain matchups if they have some good mid-rangey creatures that they're putting out fast or something. But even so, by the time you put this out turn 4, you might have already gotten beat down by an aggro deck, so it's not the best thing out there. It exists, though, if you need it. Blackblade Reforged. This is a good limited card. Like, it's better in green builds probably some of the time because you can push extra lands out with green and they have that light lands matters theme. Sometimes you can get multiple lands a turn. Now, aside from that though, I mean, let's face it, you're playing limited, you're going to have a lot of lands. There's going to be value here. Paying 7 to equip something, not super exciting, but also not impossible in the format. But you really want to, of course, pay 3, put this on a legendary creature. That's the ultimate goal here. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I've been saying it all week. You're going to have a legendary spot in each pack. Even in pre-release, you're getting an extra legendary in your pool, not to mention your extra promo card, which could be legendary as well. So you do have a lot of opportunities here. I mean, some decks might not really want this just because you don't have a lot of legendary targets and you feel like the 7's a little too expensive for what you're doing, sure. But a lot of times I think you might try to run this. Blood Tallow Candle. This is a good removal spell that if you don't have better ones, especially in the colors that you choose, this is very runnable. It's also a 1 casting cost artifact, so it plays into these Historic Matters themes pretty well. If you need to trigger some cards that matter with Historic, then yeah, here's a cheap way to do it, and later on you can also take out a creature. Deals with Indestructible nicely too, so yeah, this is very runnable. You might not always need it if you have better removal or cheaper removal, but it's there for you in the times where you don't. Dampins Sphere. Okay, this is more of a constructed card. You're going to see this in modern sideboards and such than it is perhaps a limited card. So I'm usually not playing this. I mean, maybe I sideboard it in against an aggressive, like is it wizard build with lots of cheap instants and sorceries or something. Or there's a land we're looking at later that could produce extra mana. But I think that's going to be super rare for the most part. And yeah, usually you won't touch this one. Forebear's Blade. This one I like a lot for the go wide strategies. So imagine I have a lot of tokens, the Saprolings or the Goblins or just whatever it is, or just small white creatures or something along those lines. What I can do with this is pay 3 to cast it, pay 3 to equip it. Now even a 1/1 becomes a 4/1 Vigilance Trample. Attack in with that, my opponent is going to be in a situation where they're probably forced to trade and take a little damage. It moves automatically now to my next token or my next creature. I could do that maybe once a turn, attack in with this 4/1 Trample Vigilance thing. And it's going to be persistent, it's going to be annoying, it's going to be really good. Also, this is a way to give trample or buff a large creature that doesn't have another way to get their damage across. This is not bad for you generally in Limited because you know for the most part your decks are going to be pretty creature heavy. However, it's going to be especially good if you can go wide. Maybe not as good in some of those instant decks that are running more instants and sorceries, but for the most part, you'll play this and probably be relatively happy with it. Gilded Lotus is a great reprint. I don't know what to say about this card that probably hasn't been said in the past. I mean, it's awesome. It costs 5. It's going to take a little time to get it out there. It's not like an early turn ramp play, but it fixes color, it ramps you out, it allows for some big plays later on in the game, it allows for even a couple small plays on certain turns. Back this up with some card draws so you don't run out of gas, and you're going to be having a real good day. First pickable all day long. Guardians of Koilos. Surface value here, it isn't exciting, right? A 5 cast and cost 4/4. However, I do like this ability under certain circumstances. When it enters the battlefield, you may return another target historic permanent you control to its owner's hand. So I'm thinking sagas. Like I could play a saga, get the number 1 to resolve, maybe the number 2, bounce it back to my hand, get those again before it resolves out to 3. That actually could be kind of sweet some of the time. And there's other times this will make sense, of course, too. Maybe you have a historic card with a good enters battlefield effect. Or perhaps you have other cards that are going to reap a benefit when you cast a historic spell. There's a number of those. So there are things you can do with this. Now, a lot of decks might not bother running it, but if you have a good payout, certainly run one of these. Why not? Helm of the Host. This is great. Realize it does cost 4 and 5 to equip, but once it happens, if your opponent doesn't have answers for this thing, you're going to start to slowly run away with the game. It doesn't even have to be on a good target, like just any target. Repeating something and copying it every single combat also comes in with haste, so you can attack with it right away. That's pretty amazing. And yes, it does take a little bit of investment in this, and it's not a good play if you're behind and don't have creatures, but for the most part, you're going to be really happy to play this. Again, I think this is very first pickable. Love the fact that the legendary drawback doesn't come into play either due to the fact that the token will not have legendary. Howling Golem. Not a huge fan of this. I could see myself running it some of the time if I'm in a situation where I feel like my deck is going to benefit more than most opponents' decks from card draw. Maybe I'm in an aggro deck and it's just really important that I can gas up. Maybe I'm in a ramp deck and I really need to hit my pieces and my targets, so I can exploit what I'm getting a little faster than my opponent, basically. Other than that, reciprocal card draws are a little risky. If your opponent has the faster deck, then you could be doing them a service. So I'm not going to run this most of the time, but there are a few builds where I'll consider it. Good old Icy Manipulator from Alpha Beta Unlimited, among other places as well. But this is a good limited card for you. You know, Icy got a little too expensive for like Constructed Magic over the years, but in limited, this is still fine. 4 to put in play, just 1 to activate. Tapping down a land could be really good to mess with their colors if they're getting greedy or something or trying to splash. Tapping down a problematic artifact could be good, and creatures, of course, for combat purposes. Yeah, the versatility's here. I'll run an Icy and be real happy with it, I think. Joyra's Familiar. If you have a lot of historic spells, this is very runnable. I mean, if you don't, I'm not really excited about it unless I just really need a flyer. It costs 4 for a 2/2 flyer. There's a level of fragility there I'm not real fond of, considering the casting cost. But if I have a lot of sagas, legendaries, or artifacts, this gets pretty intriguing, and I will probably go for it. Jousting Lance. This is fine. It's cheap at least. 2 to cast, 3 to equip. That's not too bad in limited. Giving it +2. It wants to be aggro. It only gets first strike when it's your turn, but that's fine. I mean, for a more aggressive deck, against some of these token decks, this could be good. Just being able to put this on a 1/1, even making a 3/1 first strike when it attacks, is not the worst thing in the world. So this is a fine piece of equipment. It might not always make your cut, especially if you're not being as aggro, or the first strike might not matter as much. For example, if you're in green where trample is more important than the first strike at times, and you have larger creatures, yeah, it's not for every build, but sometimes you'll play it. Juggernaut, another reprint from Alpha Beta Unlimited. This isn't quite as impressive as it once was, but it's still very runnable. Forecasting cost 5/3 does put a lot of pressure on your opponent if you can get it down quickly. Later in the game, it becomes a little underwhelming, though, because it will trade down. And also, it has to attack, so it's not a good blocker, of course, most of the time. If you're in a situation where you are behind, that can be awkward. But it can't be blocked by walls, so there's that. But yeah, you'll play one of these maybe in a lot of aggressive builds. A lot of times, though, you might skip this one for better things. Mishra's Self-Replicator. I'm not a big fan of this one, and I get it. Let's go to Magical Christmas Land for a second. I play this for 5, mind you. I get this 2/2. Now, if I have a lot of historic spells, then every time I play one and have an extra mana, then I can copy this, and now I get another 2/2. But now I have 2 of these, so the next historic spell, if I have the mana, I could get 2 more, and so on and so forth. Well, that's living the dream, and I really don't see that happening, quite honestly. Realistically, I think this gets stuck in your hand for a long time because it costs 5 for a 2/2 and you're just playing better things, or you just can't get to the 5 mana right away. Then you finally play the 2/2. If it doesn't get blown up for some reason, your next play you can't really make the token because you don't have enough mana. Maybe the play after that you make another token. Now you got 2 2/2s. Wow. Great. Now this is what, turn 11? So I just don't like this card. I think it's way, way too slow. I appreciate what it's trying to do, but I just don't see it there. Mox Amber. Play it, first pick it. This is awesome. Fast mana, I said this in the preview. It always finds a way. Granted, it doesn't do anything if you don't have a legendary creature or planeswalker under your control. But if you do, and again, I don't think it's going to be that hard to find a legendary creature, that fast mana can be fantastic for you. And it's a 0 casting cost historic spell, which definitely will play a role at times. Navigator's Compass. There's 2 reasons I play this. One, I could see myself main decking this if I'm splashing a color, and this is one of my better options to get that color. Or if I'm trying to get greedier, and that's fine. The life gain, not inconsequential against more aggressive builds, so that's why if I'm not main decking it and I come up against an aggro deck, I could see myself bringing this in. I like the fact that it only costs 1. It is another cheap way of triggering cards looking for you to cast historic spells. Partic Wanderer. Not super exciting. It has trample that's nice, especially if you have ways to buff it. But I think in your pools, most of the time, you're going to find better things at the higher end. A 5/5 trample for 6 is just a little underwhelming in this set. Playable if you need it, maybe in steel pools more than draft, but yeah, I'm not thrilled. Powerstone Shard. Okay, I'm not a big fan of this one. I know some people are, and I don't know. I'm maybe a little pessimistic, but here's my thoughts on it. You don't want to play one of these, because it's just not that good. There's better ways to ramp, like 3 casting costs, tap for a colorless, and I'm not excited about that. Okay. So in sealed, what are my odds of getting more than 1? Probably not great in a large set. Maybe sometimes I get 2. I don't think 2's enough either, because you really want these both out at the same time. I think you need 3 before you can really even get to that point. So it's probably more of a draft thing than a sealed thing. Now, even in draft, do I really do this? Like start throwing picks away for these things? And I just don't see it, because even if I do have, say, some really good payouts for it, and I can get maybe 3 or 4 of them, the variance is just so high for me. Like, I'm going to play this thing on turn 3, say, and it's not doing anything. It's almost like taking the turn off. And if I can get the next one out on turn 4, and I'm super lucky, now I still have to have a target for this thing, and it's great. I have lots of mana, but do I have something to do with it? Maybe, maybe not. And if I do, wonderful, but if I don't, these things are sitting out there waiting to get blown up as well, and that's not going to feel good. And especially if one of these things get blown up, or you can't find the second one until it's too late in the game, like, this is really horrible, because this is more than just, hey, I lost a artifact. This is, I lost an artifact, and now the next one I play is horrible. Like, it almost impacted 2 cards right then, and I don't know, it just doesn't feel consistent enough. I know Magical Christmas Land, you can do crazy things with this, and you get 2 of these out, and all of a sudden ramp into something huge and win the game. But I feel like it's just not going to be consistent enough, unfortunately. Shield of the Realm. Okay, not too exciting. It's cheap, I'll give it that. If there's a creature I really care about that I want to protect, then maybe this gets a little more interesting. But I don't see myself running this one most of the time. The one thing I will say, though, about this piece of equipment, and the next one we're going to look at, even the mediocre, kind of boring ones in the set, they sometimes do have a place in like the red-white builds, because there are some cards that are looking for equipment and will actually get bonuses for equipment. And also the first strike, like on the Knights, even giving something like +1/+1, or just giving it an ability like this, will actually sometimes feel a lot better, just because that first strike will just enhance it that much more. So I'm not going to say any of these are unplayable by any means. Just keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the review. Short Sword. The only good thing I can say about this is that it is a cheap way to trigger abilities looking for historic spells to be cast. But other than that, I'm not touching this thing. It's cheap, but it's just not doing enough. Skittering Surveyor. This is fine again if I'm trying to fix colors. It's not really ramping you, but it can ensure that you're going to hit your land drops, at least partially. That's kind of nice. It does cost 3, but once you get to that point, you know that you're going to be able to find the land that you need or the color you need. So I do like that for splashing or for getting greedier. If I'm in a 2-color deck, though, I'm probably not playing this. Sorcerer's Wand. Yeah, this could be okay with wizards. Like, it's not super thrilling, and I can see myself not running this unless I have a lot of wizards. Pinging an opponent for just 1, not exciting. If I have a wizard and can do 2, that gets at least a little interesting. So I'm not going to say I'll never run this, but it has to be in a pretty significant wizard build before I'd even consider it. This could be another cheap way to trigger abilities that are looking for historic spells to be cast. And it also could be an okay sideboard option if the opponent happens to have a Planeswalker. I'll give it that. Sparring Construct. I actually like this 1-drop. I don't like a lot of 1-drops typically, but this one feels pretty decent to me because your opponent is in a situation that if you play it on turn 1, well, okay, maybe they can get rid of it or something, or they're not scared of it really until you have a second creature in play, but it is annoying if this thing dies, and obviously with the sacrifice effects in black, it could lead to some plays. It's also a 1 casting cost historic spell, so that could be important too. Thran Temporal Gateway. This thing's awesome. Here's another first pick for you. Put a historic card from your hand onto the battlefield for 4 mana, tapping this. Okay, sure, I'll do that. This thing's awesome. Legendaries, sagas, artifacts, all that stuff. You can just toss into play. And you can even at times maybe play something that's off color that's really good. Like if you get one of those 3-color legendary creatures or something that you really want to play, but you don't really think your deck can swing it. Or really anything you just don't feel like is either too expensive or you don't have the mana capabilities of pulling it off. This is a way to do it. Definitely something to think about. So there are times where this might get awkward. Like obviously if you're in an aggro deck and nothing costs more than 4 in your deck or something, don't play it. But a lot of the times you will have some payouts for this. So it becomes very playable. Also, this is a way around counter magic. Traxo, Scourge of Krug. This is really good. Now, I know, there's going to be those moments where it gets stuck tapped and you keep drawing lands and you're like, really? Seriously? I can't untap this thing? But for all those moments, there will be many where I think it's still good. I don't think historic is an issue. Casting historic spells in this set, I don't think is going to be a problem. It covers enough things between legendaries, artifacts, and sagas that I don't really see cases where I don't play this card if I happen to get it. Definitely in a draft, I could be able to draft around it a little bit too, just for an insurance policy. But even seal pools, I'm not concerned that much about it. Now, if my deck ends up not having a lot of historic triggers for some reason, of course, skip it. But for the most part, I think this is very playable and very good. Urza's Tome. I'll play this all the time. To me, this is a very high pick on common, as a matter of fact. I like looting, and I'll even pay 2 and then 3 to activate all day long for loots. And yeah, the whole exile a historic card from your graveyard turns it into actual card draw, and wonderful, but I don't even care about that all that much. I'm just all about looting, and I'm more than happy to do whatever I need to do to make that happen on some sort of consistent basis. Also, this is a discard outlet, which may come in handy with some of the black and green interactions in the set. Voltaic Servant. Hey, a little reference to Voltaic Key there. I like that. This can be fine if you have enough artifacts that you care about. I mean, at the beginning of your end step, untapping an artifact, that could be an artifact creature that you could attack with and then use it as a defender. It could be an artifact with an ability, like an Icy Manipulator, that you could end up using twice or something like that. This combos very well with Traxos, so there's a lot of versatility here. If you don't have reasons to do it, don't run this 1-3 for 2, typically, I would say. Of course, it's also a good blocker against aggro, so you could always side it in those situations. But if you have reasons to play this, it could be good. Weatherlights. This is awesome. Another great mythic, obviously. Cost 4 for 4/5 with a crew 3 flying. That's enough right there for me to play it, as a matter of fact. Now, this ability is cool, too, if I can hit some more historic spells, which I think I can, usually, most of the time. Again, I don't think it's going to be a huge issue, especially considering I'm going 5 deep when I do combat damage to a player with this. Then, yeah, even more value. Wonderful. There's some light connections here to Dragonlord Ojutai, which was a great card, and I do think, even though this card is probably not that good, it's still really, really good. This is another one I can't wait to try out and play. Alright, let's move on to some lands. We're going to begin with Cabal Stronghold. This is about going mono black, and is that going to be realistic? Obviously, probably not sealed, but in draft, I don't know, maybe? I do feel like I'm sort of cutting myself off, though, in this format. If I just focus on black, there's just a lot of things the other colors are bringing for support and bringing to the table. If I'm not mono black, I probably don't want to touch this thing, because it's not going to really do enough for you. If I am, somehow I draft some amazing mono black deck, and I happen to get one of these because it's rare, I'll play it. Most of the time, though, not using it. Clifftop Retreat. This is the first of a cycle of enemy-colored buddy or check lands that are in the set, originally from Innistrad, so these are welcome reprints, actually. How do they work out in Limited for you, though? I know sometimes it's a little disappointing when you open a pack and your rare is not a bomb creature, it's a land. However, if you're in these colors or splashing for one of these colors, you're going to be pretty happy about this, and you should be happy about this, because evening out your mana is one of the best things you can do for yourself when it comes to your actual mana base. Yes, there's ways to even out your mana with sorceries and things of that nature, but they do take up spots in your deck. So as much as you can do this outside of your actual playables is very nice, right? So do you run these? Yeah, if you're in the colors or splashing for the color, definitely run it. Don't hesitate for a second. This will be great. I will say these are a little better if you're going less colors, like a 2-color deck or a 3-color deck. They get worse as you add colors if you try to go super greedy. But yeah, a little bit of slowdown is not enough to make me say I'm not going to play this if I'm on these colors. It's still amazing and limited. So just something to keep in mind. But we'll be seeing the cycle as we move through the lands today. Here's another part of that cycle, Hinterland Harbor. And another one, Isolated Chapel. Memorial to Folly. You're going to see a cycle of these lands too at Uncommon. Now they all come into play tapped. They all tap for one of the given color, 5 different ones. And they all have an ability that makes sense with that color. In this case, I can tap a black and 2, tap this and sacrifice it, return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. So this is a good example of what you'll see here. My advice on these is I'm not really worried about them coming into play tapped and limited. I feel like the slowdown is maybe a little annoying at times, but definitely worth the upside of this card because it does give me mana on color, which is fantastic. And these abilities are all actually pretty good. This one, yeah, I'll play any day if I'm playing black. Especially if I'm playing some of the black cards that are making me put things in my graveyard or sacrifice things, or blue mill or something like that. So basically, if I'm in black, I'll run one of these and be really happy with it, maybe even 2. Also worth noting that land abilities are nice since they do get around counter magic. Memorial to Genius, kind of the same thing here. This is maybe one of my favorites, though, of this particular cycle. If I'm in blue, I will play this all day long and I won't hesitate. Because later on, when I don't need the land anymore, being able to convert this to card draw is awesome. Memorial to Glory. Another really strong ability. This one and the blue one, probably my favorites. Getting 2 1/1 creature tokens off a land for 4 mana and sacking it is actually not bad. And these tokens are great, of course, we've seen all week for going wide or sacrificing the things. There's a lot you'll be able to find to do with them. Memorial to Unity. Good for green. Definitely play it. Sacrificing this, you look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them, put it in your hand. The rest go to the bottom in random order. So, unfortunately, they don't go to the graveyard, but it would probably cost more if that was the case. So, I'm okay with the 3 activation costs there. And, yeah, green wants to find creatures. This helps you do it. Memorial to War. This one may be one of the least exciting ones of the group, but I'll still play it most of the time in red because, yeah, you know, sacrificing this and paying 5 to destroy target lands. If my opponent does have a problematic non-basic land, or if they're trying to get greedy on colors, or I can knock them off their splash or something, wonderful. There's times where this will definitely be awesome for you, but a lot of the time it is a little slow, a little clunky, and if your opponent's not doing those things, then, yeah, it's just not really doing a lot for you other than just coming into play tapped. And red, out of all the colors, is probably hurt the most by having a land that comes into play tapped. So I could consider this one, out of all 5, being one that maybe I don't actually always main deck and just bring in as a sideboard card. But in a lot of red decks, it's still going to be fine. Sulphur Falls. Here's another one of the buddy check lands. Woodland Cemetery, the final buddy or check land. And our last card of the set, Sulfuran Void. This is good. I like scrying. I've talked about that earlier in the week. Scrying's awesome. I'll scry as much as I can. There's a little drawback here. This doesn't come into play tapped. That's awesome. However, it doesn't give you a mana of any color. So a lot of people will say to me, you know, I have these lands that have abilities like this, but they just give me colorless mana. Well, why wouldn't I run them? I mean, they're not taking a spot as a spell in my deck or anything, so what's the harm? Many times it's very true. There is no harm. If you're playing, say, a 50-50 two-color deck and you're going with 8 plains and 8 swamps or something like that, then yeah, you know what? This could be land 17 for you, and it's only value. It's not going to hurt you the vast majority of the time. But if you're getting greedier with colors and you're worried about hitting your splash, you're worried about going 3 colors or something like that, you don't want a land necessarily that's not going to help you get there, and that's where you start taking risks that are probably unnecessary. Now, if you really care about this scry, you could make it one of your spell spots as well, and that could be important too. Maybe if you're more controlling and land is going to be more important to you, then perhaps going 18 lands might make sense, and then this could just be your 18th. So there are definitely times where you might be going into more colors where you could still figure this out. But for the most part, this is something I play in like 2-color decks, but I start to shy away as I get more into 3 colors or higher. Alright, with that being said, that is it. We made it through Dominaria. So hopefully these videos will be helpful to you. Good luck at your pre-release this weekend. Let me know, either in this video or other videos this week, how it goes, what kind of pulls you get, how your tournament goes, all that stuff. Love to hear about it. Tomorrow, we're going to be back with a pre-release primer video. It's really geared towards newer players. Maybe you've never gone to a pre-release before. Just give you some basic information that you might want to know. The day after that, we're going to talk about some of the cards you might be opening this weekend at the pre-release and what the values are for the higher valued cards in the set. Just so you know, you don't get pulled into any bad deals over the weekend. Saturday, we'll do our regular market watch. But until then, hey, as always, thanks for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe. Have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.